And the worst combination for a tank in the game is a gnome warrior. Do not do this. But if you do, make sure you name them No Mercy or No Mana. Those are amazing gnome names. You gotta do it. Alrighty, welcome back everyone. I am Blaze here. Today's video is on the best tank, race, and class combinations in the game. Especially good for min-maxers. Metrics we'll be evaluating here. What's the best class if you're a good alliance or you're evil alliance? How are the starting locations? What are the stats that they start out with initially, and what are some racial innates? And as a disclaimer, what race you pick really only matters in classic Kunark and Velius. After that, it largely becomes irrelevant, except for some cases. So I just say, pick whatever you think looks the coolest. Alrighty, so the warrior class, the best raid tank in the game. Nobody can get their hit points, their damage mitigation, so their armor class. Nobody can get those as high. Nobody can take damage as well as a warrior can. So if you're going to go with a warrior on, say, a good or a neutral alliance, you'll have access to most of the places in Norath. You want to pick either, I say, a barbarian or a dwarf. Now, barbarians have the higher stats. They'll have a little bit more hit points, a little bit more strength. But dwarves will be able to proc weapons a bit more because they have 20 more points to dexterity. And warriors do maintain aggro by weapon procs. It's a major way they do it. So if you're going to go with barbarian, I think just in general they look cooler, but they have a worse starting location. Hallis is really far out of the way. Now I like it, but in terms of the most optimal leveling path, most people are going to be in Freeport, or they're going to be in the Fadeware continent. And Hallis is a very long run. It's a very long way to get to where most people are going to be at leveling. Barbarians also have poor night vision, which does not matter much on live, but on P99, not being able to see at night, poor night vision really does matter. You will be blind as a bat. So barbarians have the better stats, but their racial innates aren't as well, but they do have slam. They do have an ability to bash without a shield. They have an ability to stun without a shield. Now dwarves, slightly worse stats, better on dexterity though, better on their ability to proc. Their starting location is optimal. It's one of the best spots in the game. In terms of their racial innates, they're able to see with infravision. They're able to see a little bit better at nighttime. And they're also small, which is very useful because in some zones in EverQuest, they're very claustrophobic. Like Guck is a nightmare to be an ogre to try to get through. Some zones are really cramped, and being a giant race does not help much. But on this one, I'd say it's personal preference. And as a special nod, you might want to consider Halfling actually if you're playing on P99, because class and race EXP bonuses exist there where they do not exist on live. Warriors have slightly more experience gain than other classes, and also Halflings are one of the only races that actually have an EXP boost as well, 5% boost. So a Halfling warrior would level significantly faster than most other combinations you have here. And they have hide and sneak, which is pretty nice. But it does not matter on live. Live doesn't give you those EXP bonuses. Now, if you're going to go for warrior on Evil Alliance, it's a toss-up between Ogre and Troll. Ogres do have the better stats. Their starting locations are pretty much very close to each other, pretty much the same. The only major difference between the two here is their racial innates. They both have slam, so they can stun without a shield. Now, trolls have an enhanced hit point regeneration, so they'll recover a little bit quicker. But I find this to be largely irrelevant because warriors aren't going to be soloing. You're going to be getting healed by healer. So I think Ogre is actually the best race out of everybody to pick for warrior, because their racial innate is frontal stun immunity. I think this is actually the best racial innate in the game. No matter what, if you try to bash or slam or any kind of stun to an ogre to the front, it won't work. And this is very, very helpful because warriors maintain a lot of their aggro, they maintain a lot of their threat through auto attack, through meleeing. And if you get stunned, you're not attacking. That will hurt your ability to generate threat. That will hurt your ability to maintain aggro on mobs. So never getting stunned from the front is very, very useful for an ogre. And the next one, the Paladin class, the Holy Knight, a combination between a warrior and also the best healer in the game being the cleric. Now, Paladins are good alliance only, and in my opinion, the best race to actually pick a Paladin is to go Dwarf. They have the best stats in general. They are much better towards meleeing than any of the other ones, and their wisdom is about middle of the pack. It's a little bit higher than middle of the pack. But if you want to go more for a caster bent, you might want to consider High Elf. I think High Elves actually look cooler with their armor sets, and a slightly better starting location because it's right outside of Greater Fate Arc, as opposed to a pretty long run to Greater Fate Arc from Paladin. And I'm not sure if High Elves have infravision, if they have better night vision, but I do know Dwarves do, so Dwarves will be able to see better at night. I just think Dwarf is probably the best combo for a Paladin. Now next is the Shadow Knight class, the combination between a warrior and a necromancer, using the dark arts to heal themselves. So Shadow Knights can only be evil, and I think it's pretty clear on this one to go with Ogre because of that frontal stun immunity. They also have the best melee stats. But the big con about Ogre is that their intellect is the second lowest out of all the classes, and intellect is what Shadow Knights use for mana. It's what they use for their mana pool. So if you were going to be more of a caster bent Shadow Knight, you might want to go Erudite, who have the highest intellect out of it, or say Dark Elf, I think being the coolest looking Shadow Knight. But you really can't beat the Ogre's frontal stun immunity. If you're trying to cast a spell and you keep getting stunned, it's going to keep getting interrupted. And especially if you're trying to generate aggro with one of your threat spells that Shadow Knights use, and you keep getting stunned, it's just not going to go very well. Being Ogre, the frontal stun immunity of it is one of the best in the game. It's one of the best racials in the game. And then for the last class, now Rangers aren't really pure tanks. I consider them more of a hybrid tank, and they can be good alliance only. I throw them in here though because they have taunt, and they do have some spells and other abilities that help them generate aggro very quickly. I think there's really no clear answer on this class. I think if you want to be a human, it's a bit tankier. If you want to be more balanced, you'll go with Half Elf, and if you want to be a caster bent, you might want to go more of a Wood Elf. But I would say the Surefall Glade start near Kanos is one of the worst in the game, just because it's so far out of the way. So I would say if you're gonna be a ranger, you probably better actually to go Half Elf or Wood Elf and start out in Kelethin, because that's one of the best early level progression spots in the game. But alrighty, if you disagree with my list, if you think there's anything else you'd like to add, please go ahead and leave a comment below. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.